What's going on, everybody? It's Brian Tripp. Welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Live podcast. We are REI Live. We interview the very best real estate entrepreneurs all throughout this great country, and today is definitely no different. We have an incredible guest. I'm so excited about this. We have Mr. Michael Maher on the show. How's it going today, Michael?
Awesome, Brian. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be on as always, and let's do this, right?
I'm excited to have you because what I preach and what I've been preaching on this podcast for 2+ years is networking. I think that networking is the single most important thing that you can do in any business, and I'm living proof of it. My whole entire business is predicated on networking. And the single best book on networking I've ever read. I'm not saying that to flatter you. I'm not saying that because you're on the show, and that's why I wanted to have you on the show. The single best book I've ever read on networking is this book right here. If you're watching us on video, I'm holding it up. If you're listening to us on audio, it's a book called The 7 Levels of Communication, written by one Mr. Michael Maher.
Wow. Well, thank you very much. That's high praise because I know you're a reader and a leader, and you've done a lot with networking. So that's high praise, and I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate the book a lot. Let's just kind of start on the very kind of bottom level just to start off.
Okay.
Just tell everybody about the book if they haven't ever heard of it. What is it about? I just kind of told it was about networking in a sense, but what is it? What's it about? How did you even get the inspiration to even write the book?
So bottom line, it's the book on referrals.com, right? It's the book on referrals. Everything in it is geared towards helping you become referable and helping you attract referrals through communication. It is the 7 levels of communication, not the 7 levels of marketing. I did have some early publishers say that, hey, if you'll call it the 7 levels of marketing, you'll probably sell like 5,000 copies. You'll do really well. Well, we've called it the 7 levels of communication because it is more about communication than it is about marketing. I don't go into the 7 levels a ton in the book. Yeah. I do more of here's how to use them. I think it's I'm not going to sell you on the 7 levels of communication. It's more of, okay, here's how you use phone calls. Here's how you use handwritten notes. Here's how you use events. Here's how you use one-on-ones to grow your community. And we call it your army, right? You want to build an army of ambassadors. And ambassadors are people who speak highly of you and refer you willingly. That is you've heard the term maybe brand ambassador. So what you need is a you ambassador, your brand ambassador. And everything in 7L is about how do you build this army of ambassadors. And in fact, that's our tour this year is the Army of Ambassadors. And we're talking about how to build your army and arm your army, train your army, rally the troops, and so on and so forth. The entire focus is, build your army. Add one more person who will speak highly of you and refer you willingly. Too many people talk about quantity, right? It's like add 250 people to your database or build your list to 10,000 or what. Yeah. Well, here's the thing, right? How about we build it with one person a week where we build it at a really high level type of relationship. And at the end of the year, you have 50 to 52 real champions, real ambassadors. This isn't superficial. It is not a numbers game. Everybody says that it's not a numbers game. It's a people game, right? And that's awesome. Here's the thing. Don't worry about your numbers. Don't worry about your numbers. Take care of the people, and the numbers will take care of themselves, right? Take care of the people. People have all the money, right? I mean, focus on the people, and they'll give you the money in exchange for the value that you've brought to their life, right?
That's awesome stuff. Quality over quantity, depth versus width. I love that. It's awesome. So
let me give you a quick example on that just to prove the point, right? Here's the thing. You have holy cow, you're a rising gun when it comes to the podcasting and what you're doing and what you're teaching, right? And it's one of those. So let's say you wanted to sell a lot of books, or let's say I wanted to sell a lot of books. Which would be better, a list of 20,000 or a list of 1?
Depends on the one. If the one is 1 is highly influential.
Yeah. So what if the 1 is Oprah? Right? Right. And that is, it's quality over quantity. And if your one is Oprah, you're going to win. And that relates to right now, everybody listen to this, is who's your Oprah, right? Who's already champion? I mean, and reach out to them, invite them to coffee, invite them to lunch, write them a handwritten note, like appreciate them, because dang it, if you don't, somebody else will, and you're going to lose a very special person. Right.
So around here, Michael, we say, ask the question who, not how. Don't ask how you can do something. Ask who can help you get to that point.
Exactly. Who do you need to be connected to? You know, you can leverage. That's the beauty of, they call OPM, right? Other people's money. But the other thing too is OPE, which is other people's experiences, right? When you talk to another and you connect to other people, you are actually leveraging at the highest level. You know, you can leverage people, systems, or tools. Well, people are the most valuable, because when you leverage people, you're also getting all the people that have been in their lives, and you've got all their contacts and all their team and all their network. So be a really good people person. You know, it doesn't mean I'm an introvert, right? I'm an introvert, but I speak on the road every week of the year, but I'm an introvert. And you're like, well, you know, wouldn't you rather, whatever? It's like, here's the thing, right? Is introverts have to build relationships too. Extroverts have to build relationships too. And being an introvert, I do recharge by retreating, whereas an extrovert would recharge by getting into the middle of a group of people. So it's like you recharge how you recharge, but we all are in this to meet great people. And honest, business, right? What is business? Business is just a great excuse to meet great people. Otherwise, if we didn't have a business, we'd all sit behind the computer in our pajamas and play Facebook all day. You know, some people do that and think they have a business, but they have no business having a business, and probably have no business, period.
This is already awesome stuff. It's already great stuff. I want to go back to, I've already taken a full page of notes. I'm going to have to go to page 2 for the first time ever in a podcast. And we're only 10 minutes.
Whatever, dude. You're a note taker. You're
kidding me? Whole page. So I want to go back to something you said in the very beginning. You started talking about the word communication.
Yeah.
And in the book, you say we can't spell communicate without time. It's something you say in the book. In today's culture, it's so easy for even for me, and probably for you too, just to send a quick text message. It's easy to send a quick email. It's easy to, but that's so, when you start talking about the 7 different levels of communication, those things are kind of, even though they're one-on-one, they're still a little bit further down. How do we kind of, you just kind of said it, it's kind of quality over quantity, but how do we kind of fight that urge to send the text message, send the email, maybe send a blast text, a blast email, blast, I do blast voicemails, things like that. How do
Anytime the word blast or mass comes out, right? I'm going to send a mass email or a blast text or whatever. Anytime that comes out of your mouth or your marketing director's mouth, take a rolled up newspaper and hit yourself over the head, or hit your marketing director over the head, right? People don't respond to mass or blast anymore, right? What they respond to is personalized and customized, right? So the thing is we need to focus on one at a time, and we can scale one at a time. Now that's the secret of events, right? The power of an event is that you're having 200 one-on-ones at the same time, essentially, right? It's not quite the same. We all know the most powerful level of communication is a one-on-one. More sales are done in a one-on-one environment than any other sales in the world. Yeah. But the other part of that too is one of the ways to leverage is through events, right? Which maximizes your time and also maximizes the experience for the people. Also, it's a great way for an introvert to hide. The best place to hide is at a big event, right? Yeah. That you're hosting. So the other part of it too is that you can't think about everyone the same way. People add different value to your business. So the person who refers you 0 and has referred you 0 pieces of business for 8 straight years is less valuable to your business than the person who has referred 9 in the last year, or who has referred 4 over the last 8 years. So the thing is we need to take the people that are the most valuable to our business and identify them, and then communicate with the top people, right? Who's the most important person to communicate in your business is the person who is referring you the most amount of business. I mean, Oprah, right? You need to, I mean, if you had Oprah in your network, how often would you communicate with her, right? You know, probably as often as she could, you know?
What are some tips, Michael, just to go along with that line of thinking? What are some tips? I know you said the one-on-one is going to be the most effective. Yeah. What are some tips? What are we, especially, let's say we have that Oprah in our sphere of influence. Maybe not literally Oprah, but someone that's Oprah.
Let me know. If you have Oprah, let me know, because I would love to meet Oprah. And I'm losing weight all the time. So it's like, as soon as Oprah books me and then gets me on the show, dude, I'm going to look like Hugh Jackman. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be like ripped to shreds, so to speak.
Awesome.
So, though my goal is not necessarily a six-pack.
So, Michael, say we have that Oprah in our lives.
Yeah. Thanks for getting us back on track. Bro.
Yes, I'm great at that. I'm like a C personality. I'm like the control freak.
I love that.
So we've got that Oprah in our life, Michael, and for us, how do we feel like we're not a burden to that person? Because that person's obviously on a scale probably above where we are. They're that person that they can send out maybe 1 or 2 texts, maybe a Facebook message, and get me all the business I can ever handle. How do we feel like we're not a burden to that person? How often should we communicate with that person? How should we communicate with that person?
So lots of answers there, right? So what we do with the 7L system is we help people build their business based on love, generosity, and appreciation. So the first thing we need to do is not think of this person as a conduit to something we want, right? Yeah. We need to think generosity first of all, right? So generosity is, I'm going to find out how I can help Oprah, right? And in fact, just like we talked about before the show, it's so funny. You're so good at this. It was literally, I'm like, how do I make this the biggest win for you? How do I make this podcast recording the biggest win for you? And you're right back at me. You're like, how do I make this podcast the biggest win for you? Right. And that is a high level conversation, right? And that's how you identify these Oprahs, is that they are so fast to say, how can I help you? What can I do for you? I mean, literally the top people in my database, we're sitting down for our one-on-one. Before we even get started, they go, before we get started, Michael, how can I help you? And it's like, oh my God, I haven't even given value in the call yet. But what you'll find at the top end is that the top end of people have this generosity strand in them. So by being generous right off the bat, you are finding out how to help them, right? And then help them. And you're like, well, how can I help Oprah? The fact is nobody knows unless we ask Oprah, right? And the beauty of this that I've discovered is I don't care if somebody's broke or they're a billionaire. They have a challenge. Yeah. They have a goal. They have some experience you have, they don't have. So, or they just want your opinion, right? So it's one of those where you can add value to anybody in the world. So you just got to ask questions. You're going to ask them, I would ask, what are your goals, Oprah? You've got the network, you've had the show. What's next? What are you looking to do? And so that's one thing. And then the other thing is, Oprah, what's your biggest challenge right now? Like, what's your biggest challenge right now? And I will tell you, she would be able to identify some type of challenge. And I would say, hey, look, what have you tried so far? What are you going to do next? Yeah. What's the next step? Who is someone to help you with that next step? And then I would say, by when? When are you going to conquer this challenge? And then I would say, what can I do? How can I help?
Yeah. It's great stuff. So this is, Michael, this is what I say. I'd love to get your feedback right here, because this is what I do. And I got this from the book, by the way. Ask that question, what are your challenges? Yeah. I teach that to other people, and I tell them exactly where I got it from. You got to get the book. Very powerful. Thank you. So here's what I've found. When I ask that question, what kind of challenges are you having today? The feedback I get almost 9 out of 10 times, almost every time, is, oh, I'm good. I don't need anything. So what I have found is the follow-up question to that, or the follow-up, is really just to listen.
Yeah.
Ask, like you were just saying a second ago, probe and ask the right questions, because the challenge is going to come out of their mouth in one way or another. But they're going to say, I'm good, is what I've learned, but there actually is an underlying challenge. And that's why we have to, as networkers and as people who want referrals, we have to be great listeners. What do you think about that?
Well, 100%. This is all predicated on being a great listener. If you ask these questions and don't listen, there's no follow-up opportunity, right? And I will tell you that the number one thing you can pay people, right, is pay attention. And I mean, really pay attention. Like, listen to the music behind the words. You know, you're going to be able to tap into their passions, into what they love. If you can find what someone loves, and you can find a commonality, a rapport building, an angle, a tie-in to what they love, then that's going to help you build the relationship with them, right? So that's first and foremost, is that you ask the questions and then pay attention and listen. The other part of it too is that there are many different ways to ask the question. And, you know, what is your biggest challenge right now? The words right now are really impactful because it triggers the last worry or trouble they had, right? And many times they'll just say, oh man, I just left this meeting and you know, my biggest challenge right now is how to get this client back on board or whatever, you know. But, and the other thing too is then, you know, what's your biggest frustration right now? What's your biggest frustration, like at work or whatever it may be? But I have people that know I'm going to ask that question. Like I just had Sue Adler is one of the top agents in the country, #1 woman with Keller Williams. And so, you know, we have a chance to see each other 2 or 3 times a year. It's what's your biggest challenge right now? And she goes, you always ask me that. And I go, I know, but I genuinely want to know. I want to know, you know, what is your biggest challenge right now? I'm curious, right? And then she'll tell me, right? And this is somebody that's heard the question 1,000 times, but you have to be genuinely curious, right? And that's a big part of this too, is like, I really want to know. They're looking at your eyes when you say, what is your biggest challenge right now? They're looking at your eyes for sincerity, right? Do I unload this on them or not? And I can tell you that it's a great question, because the first time as you're building the relationship, they're going to give you superficial challenges. They're going to give you business challenges. And then your relationship gets to a great level. They start giving you their personal challenges, like I'm getting a divorce, or we're doing counseling, or, you know, my kid's got ADHD, right? And at that point, you're in a great relationship. You can have that. And there's a lot of trust there. And there is a bond that is very strong, right?
Michael, how much of what you do and what this book is about is psychology?
Wow, probably all of it, right? So all of it is psychologically based on social psychology, right? So everything, I mean, here's the thing. Are you more attracted to love, generosity, and appreciation? Or are you more attracted to cold calling, door knocking, and spamming, right? So it's one of those where it's like, I don't know. I guess it's human nature as much as it is psychology, and there is a slight difference between those two, right? I'm not going to deliver any psychobabble because I'm not a licensed psychologist, but what I've done is okay. It's about influence, right? So psychology, and then there's this subset of psychology called influence, right? Everything is about influence, and influence is will people move on your behalf or their own behalf, right? Can you move people to move on or take action on their own behalf or your behalf? And that's influence. So it's all about influence. Like, reciprocity is a big part of this, right? Generosity leads to reciprocity. And then you need to have one specific phrase or message that you deliver when somebody says, what can I do for you? Or how can I help you? Right? you need to be specific, because people want to help, but the thing, like Brian, they want to help you, right? But they think maybe, man, you're so dang successful, you don't need my help. Right. And B is they're like, I don't know how to help Brian, so I'm not going to help them. They don't have a specific way. People know how to help Michael Maher. Referrals. It's referrals. Like, the answer is referrals. You connect me to someone who needs my services, right? And so that message has been delivered like 1 million times in the last 20 years. Right?
When you're talking there, especially that last answer about the psychology, you really kind of bring to the forefront. And I know I think some stuff I've read about you is the book, The Go-Giver. I know that's a book that you've read and talk about a lot. And then another book that came to my mind is the book Influence by Robert Cialdini. And I don't know if you've had a chance to read that, but that kind of stuff. I just did a video on the most influential books I read in 2018. And obviously yours was one of them. I found it in January. It took me that long to get it because it's been out for a while, but it took me that long to find it. And then Influence, Robert Cialdini. Those are the two biggest, most influential books I read last year. And I just think that it's interesting that it all kind of comes back to human psychology, social science, those kinds of things, and just being unto others how you would want them to be to you. And just, I feel like that's your message, and it's powerful and it works.
If Go-Giver and Influence had a baby, it would be 7L, right? So, I mean, the Go-Giver is the basics of the philosophy of 7L. It's like there's the Go-Giver, and it's like, all right, I read it, I love, like, how do you implement the Go-Giver? What's the system, right? Well, 7L is the system of how you be a go-giver, right? Bob Berg's a very close friend. Go-Giver is like one of the greatest books of all time, right? I mean, put it in there with How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? Dale Carnegie. So it's like, and then you've got Influence is the probably #1 most recommended book that I ever say, other than my own. And, you've got the 6 or 7, you've got consistency, you got commitment, you got reciprocity, you got authority, you got you got social proof, and you got scarcity, right? So that's ingrained. That's in my life, right? And that's what's so powerful about. And he forgot one. Cialdini forgot one, and I'll tell you about it in a second. But that's our entire system is love, generosity, and appreciation. So the problem with the reciprocity in Cialdini's book is that it's like you have no control of the reciprocity. Right. So what do you have control over? You don't have control over the reciprocity because it's coming from the other person. You have control over the generosity. That's why we preach the generosities. You have control of who you help, how you help, when you help, and what you do to help. You have a lot of control over the generosity, which leads to reciprocity. And then what do you have control over? You have control over the message of the reciprocity. So when somebody reciprocates, you're ready, right? To me, the answer is referrals, but you could make it whatever you want it to be, right? Okay, so that's the first part is generosity leads to reciprocity, which leads to the message of being specific. If you're not specific with how people can help you, they won't help you, right? There's just too many options. They don't know how to help you, they're not going to help you. They need to know how to help you, which is the power of the reciprocity. But the one he forgot.
That's huge.
Yeah, is appreciation, right? Is appreciation. And so let me give you an example, Brian, is that have you ever like gone out of your way, went above and beyond, or really put yourself out there for a friend or someone you know?
All the time.
Absolutely, right? You're an above and beyond kind of guy, right? Now, have you ever done that where the other person didn't even acknowledge it, notice it, or thank you for it?
Yes.
Okay. Are you less
likely,
more likely to do something for that person again?
Yeah. Again, it goes back to human psychology. It goes back to human nature. We're just far less likely.
Far less likely. In fact, it's so funny. I'll do that in front of people in audiences, and I'll see some of them like, right? I mean, they're like, never. It's like, okay. So now let's flip it over. Right? Have you ever done something that you just felt was like just you being you, or it was very natural, or you just thought it was part of your job, and the other person was just so genuinely, sincerely, and profusely appreciative. Have you ever had that happen?
Totally.
Are you less or more likely to do something for that person?
Way more.
Appreciation is powerful.
Yeah.
People will run through brick walls for appreciation, right? So there's a lesson there, right? There's a lot of lessons there, I mean, so when you hear all that, what do you think about appreciation?
I think that it's got to be the seventh key. It kind of, I raised my eyebrows when you said a second ago that Cialdini missed one. I'm like, I'm a big Cialdini fan.
Yeah, I am a huge Cialdini fan as well. I've written him. He used to teach at Arizona State University, 100%, right? I like I said, I recommend that book to almost everybody. Persuasion, which is, his latest book, it's interesting because, like I said, it's like, when is he going to get to generosity and appreciation, right? I mean, but the thing is, he's a professor. And listen, there's nothing against professors, but is he implementing his stuff every day? Gotcha. The answer is no, but you and I are, right? So we're implementing it every day. And that's the power to this, is that, we use all of the methods, right? We use contrast all the time. We use commitment all the time. We use consistency all the time. We use reciprocity every single day. Authority, I don't know, I'm wearing a t-shirt on a podcast that probably wouldn't fit. But people will probably not like me after this podcast, so I probably didn't do very good there.
Totally not true.
And then social proof is, that works here because you're speaking so highly of me. And then scarcity is, you know what, we're going to end this podcast in 5 minutes, so make sure you listen closely, right?
Or we have this one-time offer that's coming very soon.
That's right. Well, it's limited availability, limited seating, and it will never be offered again ever. But it could be the secret to your life's happiness. No, I'm not talking about money or anything like that. This is literally your happiness. How important is your happiness, right? Go through the rest of your life without knowing this one thing that we're going to give. Limited. Hey, I've got one seat available at this point. If you want in, let me know. So.
It's awesome. It's awesome stuff. You're a better salesman than I am.
I don't know. Is it sales or is it service? Right. I mean, I'm definitely, I had the honor to help a lot of people, which is great.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree with that. Wasn't trying to imply anything. I got a couple of questions. I want to respect your time. I got a couple other questions I want to get to. You mentioned something earlier about we all need to be people persons, however you say that.
That's right.
We all need to be a people person. Yeah. And there are a lot of people out there. I've had to learn this, and I think a lot of people have had to learn this because it does not come naturally to me. I'm from Northwest Indiana. I'm from the Chicagoland area. I've been a Cubs fan my whole life. I've been a pessimistic guy. Oh, we're always going to lose up until a couple of years ago. But I've always had that in me. I'm just the pessimistic guy. Woe is me. It's someone else's fault. I'm blaming other people. And then I'm not a people. I don't like people.
Yeah.
That was me for a very long time.
Yeah,
How do we break out of that, Michael?
So, is it that we don't like people? I think it's one of those things where it's like we don't like it when people maybe disappoint us. We don't like it when I think the biggest thing is that without people, you don't have a business, right? So we need to be people, but we don't need to be, we don't need to be all high I behavioral styles on the DISC, right? D being straight to the point, very direct, people short to the point. Then the I's are social and outgoing. The S's are somewhat social, but only with a very small network. They tend to be selective when it comes to network, and they're very steady and dependable, but they don't take initiative on a lot of things and don't take very many risks, and safety is very important. And then you got the C's, where it's very compliant, very cautious, very perfectly accurate, and things like that. And it's like, I don't care where you're at on the spectrum. You don't have to be an I. There's introverted I's. There's extroverted D's and C's. But it's one of those where it's like the beauty of the 7L system is that you have control over almost everything. And what I mean by that is when you sit down with someone, if you know the questions to ask, The person who asks the questions controls the conversation. Don't be the one to dominate the conversation. You don't have to, like I said, don't be. In fact, if you dominate the conversation, you lose. So the beauty of this is that, and this is me being the introvert that I am, is just like, man, I don't want to talk. I don't want to say this. So what I do instead is I ask questions, and they talk the whole time. Then at the end, they're like, my God, this was such a great conversation. And I said like 70 words, and they said 7,000 words, So here's the other thing. You control it, right? So you're controlling the communication and events, right? The beauty of the event is you're doing an event and you're inviting them, and everybody, they socialize with each other. So I can compensate for my lack of wanting to interact with others by putting a bunch of people who do want to interact with others together. And they love each other. And what's amazing about that is they love each other, and then they give me all the credit, right? That's what the system's all about.
So you mentioned events, and when I saw you speak a month or so back, you talked a lot about events and the power of events. Talk about that for a second. We do a lot of events here, lots of events, and I know the power in them, but it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of time. We just had 200 people in a room a couple of nights ago.
Yeah.
Talk about the power of events. How would one put on an event? How do we even start something like that?
Wow. How much time do you have? Right.
Okay.
I mean, there isn't anything that, I don't know if there's any person in the world who's analyzed events more than I have, right?
Really?
About what works and what, tens of thousands of hours of research and implementation. Events are like my thing. That's how I grew my business. That's how I teach thousands of events. And we had 330 people that coach with me have an event on the same day just a couple of months ago, right? So the biggest thing, okay, so let me give you an example. You had 200 people in the room the other day. Like, what was cool about that event, the event you just had?
From my perspective?
Yeah, or in general. Like, tell me, yes. So from your perspective.
I enjoy being a host. I think that that's a gift that have or something I have ingrained in me.
You brought them together?
Say that one more time.
You brought them together?
What do you mean?
So you brought the people together?
Yes. Yeah. I put the event on.
Right. I mean, you can attend events, right?
Yes, I put it on. I put it together.
Yeah. So what were 2 or 3 cool things that happened at your event?
The fact that it is a networking event, and I'm a big network type of person. I'm a big believer in it. The fact that deals are being made, relationships are being cultivated, and I'm the facilitator. And just the fact that I get enjoyment and fulfillment out of being a facilitator. I bring a great keynote speaker in to build everybody up, very motivational and teaching at the same time, real estate. And it's fulfilling for me personally.
Yeah. So you added value to a lot of people.
Yes.
In many cases without even being there. Right. I mean, there were conversations going on in the group that you weren't a part of that were adding value to both the people, and you weren't even there, but they're going to give you the credit. Right. So it's this power of leverage. What is the power of events over all of the other 7 levels of communication is leverage, right? It's leverage. You're one to many, whereas the other things in this are very one-to-one, right? Handwritten note, you can do one handwritten note at a time, get it out. Phone calls, one-to-one, ear-to-ear. One-on-ones is one-to-one. That makes sense. And then the events, though, are one-to-many, so it's very leverageable and scalable. So that's the first benefit for us. But the benefit to them is that there's energy in the room. There's connections being made. There's entertainment that we're paying for. There's magic that happens at events. And so, I mean, and it doesn't take 200. An event is like 3 people, right? I mean, if you do a lunch with 3 others, I would consider that an event, right? And onward and upward, right? I mean, my board of advisors for years was 12 people, 12 to 25 people, so very small. So if you want to get started, just invite 3 people to lunch, I mean, literally. And just get started, right? And if you don't have a budget, then you just say, hey, let's all get together for lunch. We'll all take care of our own, but let's mastermind on customer service. Let's mastermind on business. Like, what are your goals for this year? Or, where do you want to go? So you can start small. The other thing, like you said, it takes time and energy and effort and so on and so forth. But most people don't plan 7 or 8 weeks for an event. Most people try to do it in 3 or 4 weeks. And yes, it's very stressful. But our system is like, all right, you've got 7 or 8 weeks before the event, and you're going to do a little bit every week for 8 weeks. You're going to have the event, and then you have 3 or 4 weeks of follow-up. So, when you break it out, it's not as demanding on your time, energy, effort, or money, right?
Definitely.
And then the other part of it too, you got to have sponsors, right? You got to have sponsors. And you're like, yeah, but I can't ask for people more. You're not asking for money. You're asking for them to help offset some of the expenses in lieu of advertising and promotion for them. They love it, right? People want to sponsor. They might as well sponsor your stuff. And then the second thing is you got to partner with a charity, right? You got to partner with a charity or nonprofit. You have 200 people in the room. What if 100 of them brought Cokes, right? What if 100 of them brought blankets? What if 100 of them brought a canned good? What if 100 of them brought a toy for Toys for Tots, right? And they would have, not 200, trust me, 200 will not bring a toy. But if 100 do, 100, are you kidding me? I mean, there were a lot of kids who did not get toys this year, right? And I mean, and we think it's America. How the freak, there are homeless people in America. There's kids that die of starvation in America. How does that even happen, right?
Michael, you're digging a knife into my gut right now. You're making me feel guilty that I didn't do more.
What are you talking about?
Do it better.
Who can't do an event better? Everybody can do an event better, right? I mean, the thing is I mean, it's like, listen, I mean, here's the deal. You got the coaching after the event, right? It's like life, right? Life is the worst teacher ever because we get the lesson after the test.
That's right.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
In school, you got the lesson and then you got the test. But in life, you get the lesson, the test, and then the lesson. So anyway, by the way, if when you take a quiz, you're quizzical, right? When you take a quiz, you're quizzical, right? Does that make sense? All right. What are you when you take a test?
I'm not going to answer that.
Dude, that's like teacher humor, right? It's testicle. The answer is testicle. So
I got the answer right away, by the way.
Dude, that's nuts, isn't it? I mean, you got to be balls to tell that joke. I'll be here all week.
The book is the 7 levels of communication. We're going to end on that note right there.
At all. Brian said, hey, whatever you do not do any shameless promotion or have your book on there. So anyway.
I didn't even notice it behind you, actually. So
really? You didn't notice that?
I didn't. But
it's not there.
For the YouTube watchers, the people who are watching the video, they've been seeing it the whole time. Guys, I cannot if you've been listening to our podcast for any period of time, you've heard we did a book club episode on this a few months back. We recommend this book a lot. I'm not saying this again to flatter Michael just because he's here. This is the single best book on referrals I've ever read until I write mine, Michael.
That's right.
And I highly recommend it. I can't recommend it enough. We're going to link it up in the show notes. Michael, you do a lot of events. Yeah. I know you're doing one in Atlanta after this is already going to air. You're probably going to be back in Atlanta, maybe be back in Birmingham.
October, November, we'll be back in Atlanta. So there'll be an opportunity. That'll be a 2-day event. So that's the advance. It's called the Referral Mastery Advance. Mm-hmm. And the Referral Mastery Advance is for every business owner to put together your business plan for your clientele and customer base, right? So everybody walks out of the advance with a 52-week plan, and many of them walk out with 2 52-week plans for their entire database. You literally have your own that you've filled in, and you have a 52-week plan for your database or for your customer base.
It's powerful.
That's in late October, early November. The date hasn't been set. We're still in negotiations with hotels.
So as soon as we know those dates, this podcast will have already been out by then, but we're going to link that up on our REI Live Facebook page and probably on my personal Facebook page as well. Just because, Michael, I love you. You've been so generous with your time, generous with everything that you do. Obviously, the book is absolutely incredible. It's a no-brainer. If you don't have it, go get it right now. Stop what you're doing. We're going to link it up in the show notes as well. Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really do appreciate it. Any last words, anything else you want to add before we go?
I just want to thank you, right? Thank you for being so growth-oriented. And you know what? I mean, it's like I said, I truly believe everybody should write a book because they have wisdom to share. They have value to share. And here you are, you're sharing your wisdom on this podcast every single week and every single month. And you're delivering a heck of a lot of value to a heck of a lot of people, not just in Birmingham, but global, right? Worldwide. And I just want to appreciate that, right? That just keep growing, keep leading, and leading by example, as well as bringing leaders onto the show. And I just thank you for having me on, but even at a bigger level, being the learner and the grower, that you are.
High praise, man. I can't thank you enough for that. That means a lot to me. Thank you very much. And guys, we love you so much. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button right now. You're not going to believe the guests. You think this is a great one. We got some other great shows on the horizon as well. Hit that subscribe button so you get the alerts. Rate us, review us. We love you so much. We'll see you next time.